Okay, now we're going to look at our second Hellenistic part of the world, our second Hellenistic civilization. By now that word Hellenistic is familiar to you. You know that word Hellenistic refers to people who aren't themselves Greek, but who've adopted the Greek way of life. And by the Greek way of life, essentially I mean the Athenian way of life. I'm painting with a little bit of a broad brush there, but not too broad. Essentially I mean the Athenian way of life. Well, our second Hellenistic civilization to talk about is Rome. The city of Rome, actually, as you'll see, which becomes by far the biggest city in world history. By the time the Romans have a chance to even think about how they want to live their lives, well, ancient Sumer's turned to dust. Athens has been going full bore for 1,000 years. Egypt's been going full guns for 2,000 years, maybe more. And, well, the Romans know they're late. Okay, they know they're showing up late to the party. And they even know they're late to the story of civilization in Rome. The Romans are in Italy, or the peninsula today we call Italy. The Romans knew they're latecomers to the story of history in Italy itself. They knew there'd been an earlier civilization in Italy, an earlier civilization that the Romans called the Villanovans. Now, by now you know what that word civilization means. It refers to people who live in cities and who have at least access to a written language. Well, the Romans knew the Villanovans had been there before they were. That's because just like we can dig down in the dirt and dig up Roman stuff, the Romans could dig down in the dirt and dig up Villanovan stuff. That word Villanovan comes from two Latin words. The villa part of the word has to do with a city, like a village. The nova part of the word means new. You might have known that. And so the Villanovans, that's a word that the Romans gave to the first civilization in Italy. The people who got the first idea for cities in Italy, you see. We don't know much about the Villanovans because, although they were civilized people, they could write down their story for us. No one today knows how to read the Villanovan language. That language has died out and no one knows how to read it. And so, we don't know much about the Villanovans. We know that the Villanovans at one point were conquered by another empire, another civilization, which moved into Italy from the north, a group of people called the Etruscans. The Etruscans were a civilized people. They lived in cities. They had access to a written language. But we don't know much about the Etruscans either because their language has died out as well. We've got several examples of Etruscan writing, Etruscan literature, but no one can read it. The Etruscan alphabet is obviously derived from the old Sumerian cuneiform, basically the same, or I should say foundationally at its foundation, the same foundation of the alphabet that the Greeks and the Romans used, but the language itself has died out. Even people writing at the time that the last of the Etruscans were still speaking their language noted that the language was very different than any other language around them. If you're interested in languages and you learn about Indo-European languages, you know that the Etruscans, for some reason, are not an Indo-European language, although they're right in the middle of Europe. Well, enough about that. We don't know very much about the Etruscans. We do know that the Etruscans weren't very nice to the people that they conquered and ruled. We know that because at one point, one city in the Etruscan Empire declared its independence, we'd say today. We'd say today they fought a revolutionary war against the Etruscans and gained their independence. And of course that's the city of Rome, which gained its independence from the Etruscans in about the year 509 BC. Now 509 BC is, well, it's pretty late in the story of world civilizations. By 509 BC, like I said, Sumer's already long turned to dust. Egypt's been going full bore for 2,500 years or so. This is only about 100 years before the birth of Socrates, and Socrates lives in Athens at the height of its glory. And Rome, well, by the time the Romans even have a chance to look around and think about how they want to run their lives, now that the Etruscans don't boss them around, well, it looks like they've shown up late to the party, and everybody else is way ahead of them. And the Romans, they, as they look around, they're really impressed with what they see coming out of ancient Mesopotamia. They're really impressed with what they see coming out of ancient Egypt. But they're really, really impressed with life in Athens. And the Romans are simply going to pretty much, for the most part, adopt and adapt the Athenian way of life. And I'm going to be giving you some examples of the way that Rome takes parts of Athenian culture and transfers it over to Rome. One example is with politics. Once the Romans no longer have the Etruscans bossing them around, well, they have to come up with some way to run their city, and they need some kind of political structure. The Romans are really impressed with Athenian democracy. They really like the ideals that come out of Athens in terms of democracy. They like the idea that the citizens have the power. They like that idea. But as the Romans examine Athenian democracy, they see some weaknesses in democracy. You remember Athenian democracy. You remember Athenian democracy in general and how democracy worked in Athens. In a democracy, every citizen votes on every issue. Or I should say every citizen who cares to votes on every issue. Because some citizens don't care to vote, and so who cares what they have to say about anything. But in a democracy, every citizen who cares to become informed about the topics at hand votes on every issue. You remember that in Athens, the assembly met every 10 days on schedule. Every citizen who cared to show up was automatically a member of the assembly on that day. Every 10 days there's a meeting. All the citizens who care to that day show up. And whatever the majority of the citizens say, that's what gets done. Athens is a pure democracy. But the Romans, taking a look at Athens, well, they saw some problems with democracy. For one thing, just physically, democracy can't work in Rome. That's because the population of Rome is much, much larger than the population of Athens. And even if you could find a place where all the citizens of Rome could get in one place, even just those citizens who care to show up on a certain day, well, the gathering of citizens would be so large, that the people sitting at the back of the crowd wouldn't even be able to hear what the topics of discussion were. They wouldn't be able to follow the arguments or even know what issues they were voting on. The Roman population, much larger than the Athenian population. Even if you could get all the citizens in one place, it just wouldn't function. Physically, there'd be no way for everyone to be able to hear what's going on. So just physically, democracy can't work in Rome. But the Romans saw another weakness with democracy. When I introduced democracy to you, I was talking about Pericles' funeral oration. And I told you that in general, Americans like the word democracy. We like the idea of democracy. Because democracy sounds fair. It sounds simple. It sounds just so simple and fair, democracy. I mean, if you have a problem, you just get together all the people who care about the problem. Some people don't care about the problem, so who cares what they have to say about it? Get together all the people who care about the problem. Everybody gets to say whatever they want to. Everybody gets to express their opinion. They can make bumper stickers and go on Facebook and post whatever they want to post. And then at the end of the day, everybody gets a vote. They vote. And whatever the majority of the people who care about the problem say to do about the problem, that's what gets done. It sounds simple, and it sounds fair. From the Roman perspective, though, the Romans saw democracy as being inherently unfair. I mean, if you think democracy is fair, ask Socrates, right? If 51% of the people in town want to kill you, they just kill you. It doesn't sound very fair. And, well, from the Roman perspective at least, democracy is inherently unfair. The Romans had picked up on something a later French social philosopher, a man named de Tocqueville, would come across. You don't need to worry about his name for this course. But he was a French thinker. He was touring the United States right at the time that the United States became the United States. And he talked to all kinds of different people. He talked to big shots. He talked to ordinary people in the street, thinking and trying to figure out, what's going on in this new nation, a nation which is sometimes called the first new nation. What's going on as people are trying to say, how can we structure our political system? And Tocqueville, writing in horror that America might choose democracy as a form of government, call democracy the tyranny of the majority, the dictatorship of the majority. Because in a democracy, whatever the majority of the citizens say to do is what gets done. And the majority get to boss around the minority. The majority of the citizens boss around the minority of the citizens. 51% of the population can boss around 49% of the population because 51% of the population decides what gets done. And there's no protection for minority rights. There's no protection for the rights of the minority. The majority get to boss around the minority. And, well, is that really fair? Well, Tocqueville's answer was no, it's not fair. And the Roman answer is no, it's not fair. But at the same time, they like the basic idea of democracy, which is that power comes from the people, that the citizens have the power. And in 509 BC, the Romans take Athenian democracy, they adjust it a little bit, they adapt it to the local situation, and in 509 BC, they announce the formation of a new form of government for us to talk about, a republic, the Roman Republic. Now, a republic is different from a democracy in a number of different ways. And before we go any further here, I want to make things very clear that when I'm talking about a democracy and when I'm talking about a republic, I'm not talking about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Those are just two political parties which have somehow picked up these names as labels, and I'm not talking at all about 21st century American political parties. So when I talk about democratic values in this course, I'm not talking about the values of the Democratic Party. When I'm talking about Republican values, I'm not talking about the values of the Republican Party. In this course, I don't deal with current events. Okay, I'm not dealing with headline stuff in this course. In this course, I'm dealing with things which are true no matter what time you're talking about. I'm talking about principles that are going to be true when no one's ever heard of the Democratic or Republican Party, for that matter, when no one's ever heard of the United States of America. In 10,000 years, the same principles are still going to be true. And the same differences between these two forms of government are going to be true. A republic is different from a democracy in a number of different ways. First of all is just functionally. A democracy functions differently than a republic. In a democracy, again, every citizen votes on every issue. In a republic, the citizens never vote on the issues. They never address directly the topics at hand. But instead, citizens elect representatives to make decisions for them. The citizens never directly vote on the topics, but instead they elect representatives to make decisions for them. The ruling body of Rome was an organization called the Senate. You already know how to spell that word. I didn't put it on the PowerPoints. It's spelled S-E-N-A-T-E, but you already knew that. The Senate. Every once in a while, there's an election, and individual Roman citizens who are interested in political stuff go out and they campaign, and then on election day, the citizens show up in a small group, a precinct or a district, where they can talk about the candidates and debate their character and their positions on different issues, and then they vote. And the citizens who gather in that small meeting elect a representative to go to the Senate to serve as a senator. And there in that smaller body, see, everybody can hear what's going on, hear the arguments, work out deals, and then the representatives, the senators, will make the laws. And so structurally, functionally, a democracy is different from a republic, because in a democracy, every citizen votes on every issue. In a republic, citizens vote to elect representatives to make decisions for them. A republic is different from a democracy in another way as well. In a democracy, it's just whatever the majority of the citizens say to do. Whatever the majority of the citizens say to do, that gets done. In fact, sometimes a democracy is defined as the rule of the majority. In a republic, it simply doesn't matter what the majority think about something. Public opinion is completely irrelevant. It simply doesn't matter what most people think about something. It doesn't matter at all. And this is something that, Americans don't like to hear about their form of government. That public opinion is completely irrelevant. It simply doesn't matter what most citizens think about something. What matters is what the law says. If a democracy is sometimes called the rule of the majority, a republic is defined in that context as the rule of law. What matters is not what the majority say, what matters is what the law says. And just speaking for myself, which is all I ever do anyway, just speaking for myself, I'm much happier living in a republic than I think I would be living in a democracy. Because I can pretty much see myself ending up like Socrates. Yeah, I can see myself pretty much ticking off about 53% of the people around me, and I probably wouldn't have lived as long as I have. They would have had me chugging that poison a long time ago. But instead I live in a republic. And, well, I think I'm much happier living in a republic. I think I've lived longer in a republic than I would have lived in a democracy. I mean, what if this evening after work I get home and I go in the front room and I turn on the TV and the TV comes on to WCJB TV 20 Night Beat, their evening TV show. And I go in the kitchen, I grab a bottle of beer out of the refrigerator, and while I'm reaching in the refrigerator, all of a sudden I hear the news anchor on the TV show say, our lead story today is that the Ocala Star-Banner conducted a survey, a poll, and 57% of the citizens of Marion County want to kill Dr. James Manley. And I say, what? And I come around the corner and I look, and sure enough, there's the reporter sitting there. And my face is up there in the box, in the key right over the reporter's shoulder. And I was thinking, what in the world? And right then, there's a knock on the door. I go and open up the door, and there's the sheriff of Marion County. And he says, well, I'm sorry to bother you here late at night, but I just happened to be driving down your house, and I saw this newspaper story that 57% of the people in this county want to kill you. So, I don't want to get your carpet all messy, but if you step out in the front yard here, I'll go ahead and shoot you out here. I'm going to say, no, you can't do that. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that 57% of the people in the county I live in want to kill me. It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. We got this law thing. Okay, you can't do that. Well, I guess you could, but you're not supposed to. Now, if 57% of the people in the county I live in want to kill me, well then, I might want to think about the way that I treat people. I might want to do that hard work that Socrates talked about of examining my life and finding out, well, I'm ticking off all these people. I might want to go to the library and check out a book on good manners or something. But they can't kill me. I mean, I guess they could, but they're not supposed to. All right? No, you just can't. What if 93% of the people who live in the county I live in want to kill me? Well, then maybe I better move, but they still can't. If people in the county I live in want to kill me, what they have to do is they have to get into the process. They've got to start talking about the issue. They've got to start going to their neighbors and talking about what a rotten person I am. They got to get some organization, start meeting regularly, find a candidate to run for, let's just say the state senate in Tallahassee, somebody in the community who's well known, who makes a good argument, who's not stark raving crazy, who can go out and make an argument about why I need to be killed. And on election day, you call all your friends, you say, did you vote? No, you got to get down there and vote. We got to get a senator who's going to go to Tallahassee and get us a law so we can kill that guy. And you get out the vote. And then you pack up your new state senator and you say, get up there to Tallahassee and you make whatever deal you have to, just get us a law so we can kill that guy. Well, by then, see, I will move. Which is part of the idea. It's part of the idea that if you want something to change, you have to get involved in the process and effect change through changing the law. Maybe if the people in Athens had had to do that to kill Socrates, after a few weeks they would have said, oh, forget about it. It's not just a matter of who do we kill today, but you got to get into the system and work to effect change, and that takes time and commitment on the part of citizens. Of course, we might say an awful lot of things about the differences between a republic and a democracy, And I think those differences are important and significant. I really think they are. I think Americans should know how their form of government works. It doesn't always work the way the politicians think it works, or the way the politicians say it works. They know better. But why do politicians say, if you elect me, I'll go change things? And it doesn't always work that way. Well, I think these differences are significant and important. But in this course, I'm much more impressed by what they have in common. And what both a democracy and a republic have in common is that ultimately power comes from the people. The citizens have the power. The citizens make the decisions, whether that decision is immediately on every issue in a democracy, directly by the citizens, or whether it's a process of working through the system to effect change in the law, indirectly through representatives. One way or the other, power ultimately comes from the people. And here we see the Romans taking an idea out of Athens, democracy, adjusting it a little bit, tweaking it a little bit, and then transforming it and bringing it over to Rome. When we look at Roman religion, our story is much simpler. Rome just simply adopts Athenian religion. It's pretty much that simple. Everything we said about Greek religion just slides over in your notebooks, and now we call it Roman religion. At the start of their story, the Romans had their own gods. They had a polytheistic system. But then they found out about the Greek gods, and man, those gods are really cool. They have all kinds of cool stories. And the Romans told their gods to go away and asked the Greek gods to come over and be their gods. And so everything we talked about when we talked about Greek religion, it slides over in your notebooks, and now we call it Roman religion. The same attitudes towards the gods as these foolish, bumbling kind of characters, poor role models. The same beliefs about the theos thing and the logos thing. The Romans speak Latin, and so they call the theos thing the deus thing. They call the logos thing the ratio thing. But it's the same thing, the same ideas, just being expressed in two different languages. And the Greek gods, the Roman gods, they're the same gods. It's not always obvious. Excuse me. My allergies are bugging me today. It's not always obvious that the Greek and Roman gods are the same gods, because to English readers it seems like they have different names. But when you understand how the language works, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, you can figure out how one name in one language got into a different name in a different language. For example, many of you already know the name of the boss of the Greek gods. I've given you his name a few times in the course. That's Zeus. Zeus is the boss of the Greek gods. He's the chief of the gods. He's the father of most of them. Some of you watching this presentation will know the name of the boss of the Roman gods from outside reading, or maybe you've studied this in another class at some point. Some of you know the name of the boss of the Roman gods. Some of you are right, Jupiter, the boss of the Roman gods. Well, these look like two different names, but when you understand how the languages work, let me see if I can get my pointer to come up here. No, go back. No, go back. Isn't technology wonderful? All I want is my little pointer thing down here. Here we go. Now we've got an ugly black box there blocking out everything. Okay, now we go. Okay, here, there. All that, and I just wanted to write a red line on the board. Zeus, the boss of the Greek gods. Jupiter, the boss of the Roman gods. But someone, if you understand how the languages work, you see, somebody who spoke Latin, and I know you know the Romans spoke Latin, someone who spoke Latin, who tried to pronounce the Greek word Zeus, would pronounce Zeus as Zhu. You see, they would drop off the S part of the word. They'd soften the Z sound to a J sound. They would pronounce Zeus as Zhu. The picture part of the word comes from a Latin word that means father, like paternity. And so to say Jupiter in Latin is to say what in English you and I would say Father Zeus. Eventually it's going to come up there. There we go, Father Zeus. Jupiter is just a Latin way of saying Father Zeus. So although the names look different, when you understand how the languages work, then they really are the same name. The Greek, we can do this with other gods as well. Not all the gods, but an awful lot of them. If you think about it, you see how you got from one word in one language into another word in another language. For example, the Greek god of war is a god named Ares. Ares is the god of war in Greece, you see. Now, you kind of had to take my word for it here. But in Greek, Ares sounds like a mean, tough guy. Ares is our god of war. In Latin, Ares sounds kind of like a sissy, wimpy kind of name. It sounds kind of like Ares. Ares. And it's just the way the words sound in different languages. And, well, you can't have a god of war named Ares. Our god of war is named Ares. You better not mess with us or else Ares is going to stomp all over you. It doesn't quite work, okay? So the Romans took that Greek name Ares and put a big, strong M sound in front of it. And they call him Mars. Because in Latin, Mars sounds like a big, tough guy kind of name. And so you see, with an awful lot of these names, not all of them, but with an awful lot of them, sometimes the Romans did give new names to the Greek gods, but oftentimes you can see how these names got from one language into another language.